So our first speaker will be Ojas Kadu from the National Centre for Biological Sciences in Bangalore. So Ojas, if you are ready, please share your screen.
Hope you can see my screen.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Oops. Yep. Hello, everyone. I'm Moses. I work as a web developer at the archives at NCBS at the National Center for Biological Science in Bangalore, India. Today, I'll be speaking about our ArchiveSpace-DSpace workflow for publishing our archival material for access here at the archives. ArchiveSpace-DSpace workflow sounds very big, but what it is like it's a spreadsheet workflow. A brief introduction about us. We are a public center for the history of science in contemporary India. Collections across ecology, agriculture, space research, mathematics is what we have at the archives. We also collect material from grassroots environmental movements. Um, we have a mandate to provide free and open access to over 10,000 archival objects. And we started in 2019 with about 70,000 objects from our institute itself. Now we have grown up to 300,000 by the beginning of this year. Yeah. So we keep well, most of us here would pick up on terms like archival objects, digital objects, without having to refer to the SAA Archivist Dictionary. It puts people off. It puts people off who visit us. So I would try to explain what these terms mean very briefly. An archival object is a unit component of an archival collection at any level of arrangement and hierarchy. For example, single folder, a series, a subseries, a collection is an archival object. A digital object is a unit surrogate with its archival description produced from a digitization process. For example, a single JPEG, PDF, TIFF, MP3, MOV is a single digital object. Which brings us to our classic archiving workflow, which is more jargon, I know, but also more or less self-explanatory, which is accession, appraisal, arrangement, conservation, digitization, preservation, and access. For me, who is a web developer, a lot of these are dark arts. By that I mean, like, which is what I was explaining to a colleague earlier, is that a lot of these would have complicated logic, which may or may not necessarily capture into a workflow. So I will, as like to limit the scope of this webinar, we'll limit ourselves to arrangement, digitization, preservation, and access. So yep. So very central to our workflow here is what we call a data map. A data map is something that a data map captures the archival processes of arrangement, digitization, preservation, and access. It's essentially, again, a spreadsheet. So it's a composite spreadsheet made up of these sub-spreadsheets, which we call data map AO, export A-space, have creator, DSpace export, and data map DO. The ones that you see in blue are the ones that interact with ArchiveSpace. The ones that you see in green are the ones that interact with DSpace. Yep. So one of the very first things that we do once the dark arts, as I said, of accession and appraisal are done, is that we populate the data map AO spreadsheet. For those who can scan this QR code, it will take you to a Google Doc, a Google Sheet link. I can also share the link to the doc itself towards the end of this webinar. It will just help you follow this better. So as part of our data map AO spreadsheet is something that has been derived from the ArchiveSpace's bulk import templates. The bulk import template has over, I guess, 150 columns, which we have reduced to about 30. the ones that you see here. These columns capture the usual control data, which is identifiers required at collection level and at folder level, and other metadata like title, scope, and contents, dates, and whatever container identifiers you have. All of these data maps, once populated, are then uploaded to ArchiveSpace. And once they're uploaded to ArchiveSpace generates links for these for each of these archival objects, and then we export these archival objects from ArchiveSpace back into a sheet, or we can use the ArchiveSpace API to get the web links for the archival objects. These archival objects, like this is how the sheet looks like, the archival object export, as we call it. And these are the permanent links that we get from the software. And these links are then used to integrate with the digital objects that we use. So every folder every folder that you see in this list can have one or more digital objects attached to it. It's more often than not, it's a one-to-many relation. So the next step in this process is how do we is to integrate the metadata with the digital objects themselves. So for that, we use something called a SAF creator. It's called a simple archive format creator. It's a Java application. For those who do use DSpace, it is quite popular, where you pack your archival metadata in Dublin core format, and you pack them with the digital objects. So there is a one-to-many association with the digital objects and the metadata. This is the sheet that we use to integrate our archival metadata that we have gotten exported from ArchiveSpace to their corresponding digital objects, as you can see here in the red box. Some of these digital objects are access files only. Others are archival master files. So the ones that you see under bundle original and bundle PDFM are what we call our access files. And bundle TIFF is our master file that we use for our long-term digital preservation. So once these are packed, once the SAF creator creates these packs, we upload them to DSpace with the access files. And then we generate another SAF pack, which will have access files and the masters, which we put onto our long-term digital preservation storage, which is the AWS Glacier storage. Yeah. So once these objects are uploaded to DSpace, the DSpace again generates permanent web links to them. Those who are familiar with DSpace would know these are the handle links, as they call it. And we get these links again from DSpace. As you can see, the one on the right and the one on the left. Now there is a one-to-one correspondence between the ArchiveSpace folder and a DSpace item. Yep. So once we get this data exported back from DSpace, um, we we use this sheet to generate what is called a data map DO for digital objects. This data map is used to feed back the links that we get from DSpace back into ArchiveSpace, because ArchiveSpace also links the digital objects as such. So while ArchiveSpace does allow you to have like a manual link creation for each and every folder that you upload, you can add a digital object as an instance. We have found it to be very useful to have a workflow which bulk uploads all the digital links, like so. So once that is done, we have our this is what you see here is our DSpace page with the Mirador viewer that we use. And what we have here is the metadata that we have imported using our sheets. Yep. This is a very simple workflow by design. There are certain pros to this, is that for every collection, it takes us about 2 to 3 hours per collection to, once we have the digital files, once we do the checks on the digital files and upload it, it takes about 2 to 3 hours per collection. And it's just also easier to train staff using this. So a spreadsheet is way less complicated than unpredictable nature of, like, usually custom software. Um, there are a few cons to this process, where this is something that we have been facing for about 1.5 years, where we need to find a way to sync the updates to the metadata if there are updates, which we do anticipate there are going to be updates between ArchiveSpace and DSpace. As these two applications have separate databases, they don't talk to each other. There have been solutions implemented by other archives all over the world, where there have been solutions where whether they don't use DSpace, but they do use another digital asset management storage thing, um, which talks to the ArchiveSpace database and syncs in more or less real time. Um, can find us here. I'm at the end of my talk. Feel free to check out our catalog and our link, and feel free to connect. I've breezed through this, haven't I? Uh, yep.
You have OJS, but that's fine. It's good to hear and really very interesting. So we've got a bit of extra time now. We've got a few minutes for discussion. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to pass forward to OJS for comments? I thought it was very interesting that you said it was simple by design. The systems wouldn't talk to each other. That's a bit unfortunate. What have other organizations done to solve that problem that you know about?
So from what I have heard is Smithsonian has solved this problem. I don't think they use DSpace. They use another one of a custom digital object management software, where there is some sort of a watchdog that keeps track of changes in the database on the archive space side and syncs back the metadata as soon as it detects a change to their digital asset management software. Not sure, but I'm not sure if their code is out in the public, but we did have a chat with them a while ago, and it's a project we intend to implement sometime this year, hopefully.
Oh, great. Michael's asking if you can post the link to Datamap into the chat. That would be helpful.
Sure, I will post it. Uh, it- yeah, I should have had a dual monitor for this. Is it fine if I stop sharing?
Yes, if you're finished, I think most people will have got the links, but of course
Got it.
they'll be up in the recording if they want to go back and have a look for them. But yes,
Sure.
if you want to stop sharing, that's fine. So is anyone else who's on the call have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask about OJAS workflow? Be backwards and coming forwards.
So, Ojas, is information about all of this, sorry if I missed it, but is this all openly accessible somewhere? Are you putting it all into GitHub, or is it all kind of findable on your site?
Yeah, we do. So we are going to put out the data. The data map is more or less formalized for our workflow, but we are going to put out this data map for public access. On our GitHub, we do maintain more or less folks of ArchiveSpace and DSpace both. On our GitHub, you can our GitHub is archives at NCBS, search on the archives at NCBS GitHub, you should be able to find. I'll put up a link in the chat also. Yep. You should be able to find our data maps also. We'll upload to our GitHub shortly.
And you
I
also,
was wondering, sorry, who are your users? Who are the sort of people who are accessing this material that you're making available?
Yeah, so the users of the data maps itself are the archivists here. The archivists are the ones who populate the very first spreadsheet in it, which is the data map archival objects, data map AO. And this spreadsheet is exclusively used by the archivists, and I'm the one who makes corrections later if there are any. Yep. But all the other spreadsheets are basically something that is fed to the software or like vomited back to us. So all the other spreadsheets are basically used by the users of the other spreadsheets are the softwares themselves. Yeah.
and you
See,
talked a
thank
little
you.
bit about, again, sorry if I missed it. You talked about having 300,000 objects now,
Yes.
which is a good number. How does that translate into actual sort of, terabytes of storage or because I'm
Yeah.
guessing is your data mainly, well, you tell me. And then the follow-on question from that is, are you worried or how do you manage the storage costs of putting that into AWS S3? Do you need to worry about that, or are you kind of got government funding or something to help support that?
Yeah. The first question, to answer the first question, we are at about 40 TB of storage space for the objects so far. The storage is like very generously provided by the institute. So yeah, we are like government funded for this. For the AWS Glacier, it is like since we are only doing like putting up data on AWS S3 for now, it's our it's our emergency backup. Like we have backups on campus as well, redundant backups, which are more easy to retrieve. But I get your point where getting data out of AWS is an expensive thing. But yeah, I mean, we do rely a lot on the campus funding. We are also supported by the Arcadia Fund for our projects, especially when it comes to making stuff accessible. Yeah.
Thanks, Ojas.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.